Mm. What?
Speak loudly.
I'm trying. What is your name and where are you from? Or why did you travel
Speak louder.
to the? I can't be quiet.
Okay. What is your name and where are you from?
I am going to address this in the way I would address it in Uganda. I say all my names, which is unusual here in the United States. I am Edith Miriam Nakazi Nabatesa Sanyu Namugenyi.
Wow.
I
That's a
am
lot.
from Uganda. And not that you did not hear the traditional last name Mubanda, because that's my father's name. That's a boy's name. So I don't call that for myself. I don't use that name if I'm in Uganda, because that's a boy's name. Unless I'm married to that person, that's when I would use the Mubanda part of it. But because here you do it that way, therefore I'm doing it that way. That's how this country operates. So,
That's really cool, isn't it?
Mhm.
Good.
and each name has a reason as to why I have it. So
Do you want to share that, or you don't have to?
oh, I can if you have time. I'd
Yeah.
love to have time.
Yeah, I would love to.
I think generally the Western influence, of course, took effect. The Edith, I was named after my mom's sister. And actually, when I was growing up, they called me the Uganda version of it, which is Edisa. So Edith is the equivalent of it. Miriam is also my mama's sister. Nakazi would be the girl's name in my clan. Each clan has a name that identifies them by that clan, so that you don't marry relatives. So you know somebody belongs to that clan, you just don't marry them. So that's Nakazi is my clan name. Namugenyi is a visitor, that's a proverbial name. And the first part of it is an unexpected visitor will make the people in the household go hungry, because the unexpected visitor has to be attended to. In Uganda, you don't visit anybody without being attended to. They'll feed you, but the people in the house will go without. So what happened is the day I was born, my parents had been invited to the king's palace for a celebration of his return from exile. And it happened that my mom went into labor. So I was the visitor that prevented my mom from going to these celebrations and having all the special food that comes with the celebrations of somebody really important. Sanyo is equivalent to joy. That's my mama's name. I think I've said them all. Edith Miriam Nakazi. Nabatesa, okay. Nabatesa comes, Mutesa was the king at the time, so they named me N.A. Usually when you see N.A., it's a woman's name. So they named me Nabatesa in commemoration of his return and the time I was born.
Mhm.
So that's where the names come from.
I've known you that long and I didn't know that. I love that.
Yeah, I've got 6 names.
All right, here.
Tell us where you work now, about your family, or anything you want us to know about you.
Did you catch that?
Yes, and I printed a list of what you sent me. I used to work in public health nutrition at the health department, and I did some teaching at the university. So, but most of the time I was with your mom at the health department. And now I'm retired. I decided to just take a break from all that and do something I've always wanted to do, which is to help poor children in Uganda. Because I left Uganda a long, long time ago, and I did a good bit of my education in Uganda, then came to the United States and finished the studies. But circumstances did not allow us to go back to Uganda to live. So I felt bad that I didn't give back to my country, which I've got two countries, Uganda and the United States, but I didn't have an opportunity to serve and work there. And that's why we decided to set up something to help people in very rural areas, since when many organizations go to help, they tend to stay in the urban areas. So we decided to go out in the rural areas. So that's what I do right now, is to help fundraise and do things like that to help them with different things. Scholarships, chicken for nutrition, something self-sustaining, sanitary pads so girls can stay in school, things like that. But I was born in a really huge family. My mom had 10 children, seven boys and 3 girls. So it was a huge, huge family. And it was fun. It was loud and everything you can imagine. It ran smoothly, but there was a lot of noise in the house, joyful noise. Of course, boys fought a lot. You might know something about that, Andrew.
Yeah, we sure do.
So, but it was a big, huge family.
Oh, all right.
What are some things you miss about things that you miss most about your country?
One of the things I miss is the extended family and the social network that comes with extended family. And extended family, when I say extended family, I'm referring to, it doesn't stop with mother, father, brother, sister, dog. It goes to your uncles and aunties and your cousins and the cousins' cousins. So you've got a big network. The family interacts larger than the immediate family and on a more regular basis. And so that interaction, that you get up one day and go drop in on this relative and another relative and take them things. And usually you're going to go into a rural area, so you're going to bring back lots of fresh produce or just talk and laugh. When somebody comes, you don't expect them. You don't know when they're going to leave. They might just come for the day, but they might be there for a week. And you don't ask them how long they're going to stay. They just are visiting. And maybe these days they might ask them, but in our days, we didn't ask. An uncle might send their child to our house to go to school, and they just show up. You think they're just visiting. And then after a few days, they'll say to dad, well, uncle said I need to come and go to school from here. So that means it's your responsibility to feed that child and more than likely to pay their school fees. It's an intricate network, but it worked at the time. Of course, now things may have changed. So the extended social network and family, I miss that. Then the other thing I miss is the weather. It's summer all year round. And when I say summer all year round, you've been in Bonn, so you know what the weather is like in Bonn during the summer, right? And so in Uganda, at least the part I am from, it's like that all year round. And when I look on my desktop and see what the temperature is in Uganda right now, it will be about the same as what it is in Bonn. Well, it's cooling down in Bonn. It doesn't get this cold. So, so even though we are on the equator, Somebody might think that it's really, really hot. The equator, the sun passes about 25 miles away from the capital city. But because we are high up, we are actually higher than Bonn. We are 4,000 feet above sea level.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't get too hot. There are days when it might get to the 90s, but it's a dry heat. So it's not that uncomfortable. And so right along with the weather is missing the ability to grow food all year round. Every 3 months you're planting something and harvesting something. And the availability of fresh food, I miss that.
We kind of have a few plants in our garden.
We have a few plants in our garden. Yeah, we do.
What did you plant?
Well, we have a strawberry plant and
Oh,
blueberry.
and that comes back every year, right?
Right. Mhm.
Okay, that's cool. I hope you like strawberries or are not allergic to them.
Nope, you're not, and you love them.
Mhm.
We also have blueberries. We grow tomatoes and kale.
Mhm.
We have some romaine lettuce, and then we grow herbs.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
All right. But this is your interview, so I'll stop talking. Speaking of foods.
What were your favorite foods or some common foods in
Uganda.
Uganda?
Oh, my favorite foods are foods that, even if I translated the name in English, it would still not give you the picture, because I can tell you I like sweet potatoes. But when I go to the grocery store to buy sweet potatoes, they'll be labeled sweet potatoes. When I get them home, the texture is different, the taste is different. So the sweet potatoes you see in the store, they may sometimes look the same, but inside they usually look very different and the taste is different. I think I've seen them in a store, what the Spanish call batata, I believe is what it's called. It's white inside and purple on the outside. That's probably the closest I've seen. Then there is matoke, which is the equivalent of bananas, but it's a different kind of bananas. It's not the yellow bananas. You cook these like you'd cook potatoes. You don't wait for them to get ripe to cook them. Or maybe, yeah, so it's the equivalent of your Irish potatoes. It's not sweet. And that's the staple food, at least in our area. And often it comes with it's served with a stew or meat, and the stew is made out of peanut butter. And most of the time when I say peanut butter, people go, ew. And then when they taste it, it's like, oh, it tastes good. So this is not sweet. I think if you get Smucker's peanut butter and cook them that with any onion spices that you like with water, it will make a thick paste that would look like gravy. Maybe the one that hasn't changed much in taste or look is the pinto beans. We eat a lot of pinto beans. I think that is pretty much similar to what we grow. So then you've got the chicken and the beef, and even then there is a big, big, big difference in taste. You see the beef, but when you taste it, you can tell it tastes different. Yeah. So names are similar, but the tastes vary.
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
I like peanut butter.
Now, speaking of chicken and beef, here's the next question.
What are some animals that are common
In this country, you can just say.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, you've got the farm. Sorry.
Making sure you heard.
Yeah, I think there's a delay. At sometimes there's a delay, and you've got the regular farm animals. You've got the the chicken and the cows and
Pigs.
goats. Although people here don't rear goats to eat, they usually use them to eat their weeds, but goats are common. You've got the pigs, and then you've got the wild animals. And I'm not sure the wild animals here are all indigenous, but you've got the bears, depending on what what area of the country you are in. You got the bears, you've got deer.
Mhm.
We have the elephants and the lions and the giraffes and rhinoceroses and all that, but I think some of the animals in this country were imported. I'm not sure because I find most of them in zoos. So, can you think of other animals?
Any animals? Think of any other animals that are common in Uganda? No.
No, honestly, no.
Okay.
All right. Can you oh, I'll let you ask a question.
Can you teach us some common words or phrases?
Can I teach you some common words or phrases?
Mhm.
Maybe you can ask me something you want to know, then I can tell you.
Is something you want to know how it's said or a phrase or anything?
I don't know.
How about we just do a very simple one, which is how do you say hello?
No. Yeah. When you say hello.
If I'm talking to you, right now it's morning, so I'm going to say wasize otyano, which is good morning. Wasuze otyano, good morning.
Oh.
Watsuse otienyo.
Yeah, but when you say it, the words run together and it sounds like wasuze otyano. Basically asking you, how did you sleep? How was your night?
Oh.
Like others, like your mom, if I'm calling mom, it would be mama. M-A-M-A-M-A, mama. And then daddy would be tata, T-A-A-T-A, tata. Tata, mama.
All right.
How is your relationship between?
How is the relationship?
Yeah. How is the relationship between?
Speak loudly so she can hear
I
you.
don't know what the
Okay.
country is.
How is the relationship between Uganda and the U.S.?
I can't remember.
Right now, I believe the US and Uganda are on pretty good working terms. And of course, the common goals are usually the US interest in other countries is usually human rights related. If they don't have any economic interest in a country, they tend to err on the side of human rights. So the US is trying to make sure that the country has good human rights policies in mind and that they actually implement them, because sometimes some countries are notorious for abusing human rights, and because many of the developing countries are struggling with the economy, they try to make sure that they improve the economy at different levels. So they're on pretty good terms for the most part.
Are there any books, stories, fairy tales, or fun things you want to tell us that you learned in Uganda? Yay, correct finally.
Oh, so in this okay. So when I read the question, I think I misunderstood. Books, fairy tales, and fun things that you learned in this country. I thought you were talking about the US.
Oh,
But you're talking about Uganda. Okay. Um, hmm. One of the things that I learned is the work ethic. We worked a lot. At the time I didn't think of it as being overworked, but it didn't matter whether you were a child or a grown up. If you are old enough to work, you are old enough to do something that was productive for the family at your own level. They didn't expect perfection, but they start you doing things at a very young age, whether it's cleaning the house, making your bed, preparing food, all within safety measures. Working in the garden, you go work with the grown-ups, and then there was playtime, but for the most part, you are expected to do different things that the rest of the family did. And I think right along with that goes the fact that learning never ends. You are learning all the time. And also to know that the country consists of, I'm going to say, 51 different languages, 51 different indigenous tribes, and then 40 some languages, some of which overlap in vocabulary, but that given the variety of people in the country, I learned to respect the diversity that comes along with different tribes, different languages, different cultures, so that I can't say I'm from Uganda and expect to lump my culture, which is from the central region, with people from the north, people from the west, people from the southwest, people from the east. Each one has its own traditions and customs that you've got to respect. So that's one of the things that even carries me to this country, because when you come to this country, you think you're in the US, but when you go to the different regions, it's like a different country altogether. The cultures are different. You've got the southern hospitality and congeniality. You've got the New York don't mess with me type of attitude. You've got the California independent, we do our own thing type. And you got the Midwestern, somewhere in between, they're mellow. So much so that when I moved to Georgia from the Midwest, it was like, huh? Am I in the United States? It took me a while to understand the English they were speaking. So the respect for the differences, that even though those differences exist, we got to take each region from where it is, rather than try to change them to our own ways. And I think that's really important. At the time I was growing up, of course, you got to remember that things change. There is a certain solidarity in knowing how things are and how things are run from day to day, that that you can expect from a particular area. It doesn't mean that you don't have room for improvement, but it gives you a place to start. But because I misunderstood this question, I'm going to flip it, since I thought you were talking about the US.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, one of the things that, of course, in Uganda, because English was one of the subjects and literature was part of what we were doing, we read so many books. Some were based in Uganda, some were Western books that endeared me to liking reading. But one of the books that I read after I came to the United States is Gone with the Wind. I just love that book. It's one of the longest books I've ever read. I can come up with a few others, but I enjoyed reading that book a lot. And the other thing that I've learned in this country is that you do a lot of things yourself. It's like by the time you hire a specialist to come and do something for you, it's got to be really sophisticated, high levels. People replace floors all the time. People paint their own houses. People mow their own yards. So a lot of do-it-yourself maybe transfers from Uganda as well, but we don't do it to the extent that you do it here. And here it's like everybody's an expert at something, and they try to do it themselves. So sorry, I misunderstood that. If I
Oh,
think
no,
of something else, I'll say it later on.
no, it's fine. And so maybe that issue happened in the next question too about the stereotypes. I don't know if it did or not, but are there, let me scroll back up to the question here. We have only two more questions.
Misconception about Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most common ones that I've encountered is the question of, so do you have houses that you live in? And when you leave your house after they know that yes, we do live in houses, aren't you afraid of going outside? Won't the lions get you and the elephants? So people are expecting us to live in this wild, undeveloped area that we are always looking over our shoulders to see whether an animal is coming after us. And I think I didn't see this much wilderness until I came to the United States. You drive for miles and miles and miles and you see all these trees. Yes, we have a good amount of undeveloped area, but you, in the United States, you have even more. So yeah, they expected us to live in trees, and they expected us to not wear clothes, and that, but there are lots of stereotypes that can come about. They also expect a lot of poverty, which it's true to a certain extent that there's generally a lot of poverty, and that people are in need of a lot of things. But they also don't know that there are many other successful people within the same country. You're going to see the extremes that you pretty much see here. Because there have been times when I've visited or been driving through areas and I thought, oh, this looks like Uganda, or even worse. So there are similarities in that area, that there's extreme poverty, there's also extreme richness. It goes to the other end of the spectrum. I think people expect to walk on the street and be robbed or cheated. There's a discomfort that some Westerners feel that they are not safe in the country. And I don't blame anybody for feeling insecure, because when you haven't been to a place and you've got images in your mind, either you've seen it on TV or you've heard somebody talk about something like that, you can be a little bit leery about going to that area, or whether it's visiting or meeting somebody from there. So I don't fault anybody for that. But it's fairly safe. There are incidents that are going to happen that would happen anywhere. Just like I was talking to my sister a long time ago, after we'd been to the United States for some time. We've been here for some time. And we, at that time, were writing letters back and forth. It wasn't this phone calling and texting. And so one time she said, I bought a black and white TV, so I'm watching a lot of movies. And I've just watched the movie Roots. I don't know whether you're familiar with the movie Roots. Okay, that movie is when it shows how how people were taken into slavery from Africa to different parts of the world, how they were captured and put on a ship, and then how they were discriminated against. So after my sister saw that, she wrote to me and she said, I've just finished seeing that movie. And she said, how can you live in a country that treats people like that? And I thought, oh dear, the movies can be entertaining, they can be educational, but that's not how it is day to day. Yes, there is discrimination, but the picture given in the movie is not what happens to the majority of the people. Just like other people that are not even relatives are saying, are you safe from the guns, the shooting that we see every day on TV? So other people's image of the US is you go on the street, you need to be dodging a bullet every time you walk onto the street. Yes, there are some neighborhoods that have to be more cautious than others. And there are times when it's just an unfortunate incident. You are in the wrong place at the wrong time. So things like that happen, but they are not the majority. And so just like with any stereotype, I think we need to, the word these days is fact check things, because they are not usually the way we think they are, or we've seen them on TV, or one person's experience is not everybody's experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Last question, which is, what else would you like us to know? What else do you want us to know? Anything else you want to tell us?
I think one of the things that I just want to tell you, or if I probably said this before, are the opportunities that the United States affords many people in here, whether they are foreigners or residents or citizens, that there are many opportunities that can't be gotten anywhere else. Quite often you can create your own opportunities. Of course, we came to school and circumstances didn't allow us to go back at the time. That's another story. But people leave their own countries to look for better opportunities, or to get more education so they can go back and help their people to raise their standards of living. So I'm thankful for the opportunities in this country. I'm thankful for what I can transfer or teach people or encourage people to do, that yes, they can. Even though I'm here and they're over there, I share what I've learned, and with my team of people, we share what we've learned so that they can also do better even though they cannot come. And the other thing is, if you visit Uganda, one of the things that people will comment on, apart from the weather being nice around, is that you're going to meet some of the friendliest people in the world. And in spite of the poverty that exists, people tend to transcend that. It's not that they say, oh, I'm not poor, but somehow they are happy. They've got a joy inside them that goes beyond their daily needs. They've got so many unmet needs, but they find different ways to be happy. They find ways to get together. They find ways to help one another. They find ways to make each other happy. I'd go visit relatives even up to now. They are that poor, but they will say to a child, oh, go get that chicken and give it to your aunt or your cousin, or they just give you stuff, and yet they are so poor, but they give of the little that they have. So they are really giving. And so when I came to the United States, even though I didn't know what to expect apart from the stereotypes, I've I found the people in the United States also to be extremely friendly. And you've got, of course, you've got the extremes, but the people I've encountered for the most part in my life in the United States have been extremely friendly. They are very giving of their time. They have they're very genuine in their living and in their interactions with other people, especially foreigners. They are exceptions, but I appreciate how I've experienced life here. I can say it equates to the one in Uganda, but in a different way, because there are things to think about here, things to think about over there. But I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have allowed me to experience another culture and share it with people in Uganda. And of course, as much as we want to tell stories, everybody will imagine what comes to mind when you say, oh, in the United States, things are this way. They can never get the full picture until they experience it. Sometimes we show pictures, sometimes we show videos, just like whenever I was in Uganda and I saw the different seasons. I believe that was the movie Sound of Music. And what came to mind when I watched The Sound of Music, there was a scene that had beautiful fall leaves. And what came to mind was, yeah, right. I think that's a technological change they've made to make the leaves look that pretty. And now I'm living in it. It's so pretty. I didn't think I'd get to experience it, but I like the experience that I've gone through.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. Absolutely incredible.
So what else do you, anything that you didn't send me a question on?
Is there anything else you want to ask her?
Not really, no.
No, I think that was very informal and amazing.
Besides, maybe you have a few dessert recipes.
Any dessert recipes you would like to share?
We love
Dessert recipes. Here's the thing. Ask an African for a recipe, you got a problem. Because I know very few Africans who will give you a recipe.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, I mean, I've started writing down things for people, but that means I have to measure. We don't measure stuff. You just cook. When you start cooking from a very young age, you see how your parents cook or whoever is teaching you to cook. You measure things with your eyes. That looks about right. And so you're asking for a dessert recipe. Most of our desserts were, you got mangoes, you've got passion fruit, you've got papaya, you've got jackfruit, you've got fruits that are usually probably eaten in between, but not as desserts. We don't eat dessert. So whenever you eat food, you've eaten food and that's it. If you're hungry later on, get yourself a mango, get pineapple, get some fruit, it's available, sugarcane. You can go get it, but we don't eat dessert. And I actually find it hard when I go to somebody's house. Up to now, I forget that they're going to give me dessert. Because I eat and I'm full, and then they say, okay, dessert's here. And I'm going, oh goodness, I'm full. I'm not hungry anymore. So the dessert recipes, I remember making dessert in school, in high school. I went to a boarding school and we did all kinds of things, cooking. That school was run by the Church Missionary Society in England. So one of the subjects was home economics, and we did everything related to home economics, and cooking was one of that. I remember doing rice pudding and stuff like that. They taught us the basics of white sauce and stuff like that. But right now, if you ask me for a recipe, I wish I could give you one, but I don't have a recipe. And I still don't eat dessert. I remember Lori Simino at the health department asked me to give her a recipe for the groundnut sauce I was telling you about, one of the staple sauces that looks like gravy. Up to now, I'm still trying to refine that recipe because I do it by looking. Okay, now it looks about right. I need to do this. It's all a big experiment. Our cooking is a big experiment. You need to be around someone who cooks by sight for a long time to know. If you ask me for one of the staple main food recipes, I can write down one, but know that the measurements, especially the measurements, have not been tried out and tested to be true, which means you might get a different result. Because each time I cook something, it turns out different. I just look at it and look at the salt in my hand and the spices. It's
so we wouldn't get a recipe. We would get an ingredients list.
I can give you an ingredient list, and I've written down some things, but what you get, the result you get is not going to be predictable because I don't cook using recipes. Up to now, I don't cook using recipes.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to cook with recipes. I will, but I find that it takes me a lot of time to do that. So I'm sorry I can't give you a recipe, but I can say, hey, try out a new fruit, try out a mango, try out some pineapples, try out try out a fruit you haven't tried out if you want something sweet after eating. That I think that's one of the other concepts I don't get right now, that you eat food and then say, I want something sweet. I just hear it all the time. I want something sweet. I don't get that because I haven't experienced it.
All right. Well, that's it.
But one day when the pandemic is over, maybe I can cook some of the Ugandan foods and invite you over and you can taste some of them.
That sounds like a dream.
What do you have to do with this video? Are you going to write a report?
All right. Well, what did you want to say?
Nothing.
You didn't want to say anything?
I was just saying.
I would like to say thank you so much because.
Well, thank you. No, thank you. Forgot to
You're welcome. I'm glad I could do this. I haven't done this in a long time. I used to go to schools and talk to them about Uganda. So it's fun. I'm glad you thought about me. It's been fun, and I hope the semester goes well for you. Going to school from home, and keep on doing those chores because they'll come in handy later on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.